Welcome to a new review. It's been a while since I've done anything on YouTube. Been quite busy. I'll get into that another time. But today is all about this book. It's the Game Boy Color book, and it's from Ninty Media. These guys, Paul Murphy, who's Ninty Media. I've known Paul for a while. Has brought this book out. In fact, they have a new book out, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. But today is about the Game Boy Color, for which I'm a huge fan. I've got this is unprepared, but a few in front of me. There's one there, and here's another one. I'm not showing off, just showing you some Game Boy Colors. And here's another one. But if I pull the other one out, everything will fall down behind me. So I'll just put those to one side. This is my favourite colour. Let me know what your favourite Game Boy Color console is. The Atomic Purple. I like that one because I bought it in New York. I believe that would have been in the year 2000, so some time ago. And yes, I keep them in the boxes. But it's about the book, so let's have a look at the book. The cover, as you can see here, has got the purple, not the atomic purple, but the dark, beautiful, deep purple on the cover, which is a really good choice, I think, of colour of the actual Game Boy. And then a selection of games. You've got Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, Pokemon, we've got Zelda Seasons, more Pokemon, Crystal version, Silver version, we've got Wario Land 3, Tetris DX, which is a great game if you haven't played it, and on the spine there, the Game Boy Color. That's it. That's what this is all about. Shantae there. We've got Dragon Warrior 3, we've got more Pokemon, trading card game, Mario Tennis, great game, Donkey Kong Country, what a game on the Game Boy Color. So that's really good to see a whole selection. Variants as well, so obviously you can play your Game Boy games and your Game Boy Color games. So I'm just going to put that there. You also get a nice little postcard. And this is what it's all about. It's a new Kickstarter, so you can actually have a play with both of the Game Boy Advance. It feels like I'm playing because it's a book about console handheld. It's like a handheld game. Now that is intriguing me now because attention to detail and all that. Is that the same size? Yes, it is. Well done, Paul. Pretty bang on, I'd say. So, yeah, again, unprepared, but the Game Boy, it's nice to see that he's pretty much, it's maybe a little bit bigger. I think he's got it bang on. Yeah, if you put it that way round, look, you've pretty much got it bang on, mate. So, right, let's get into it now. Do I need to move the camera? No, I think I'm all good. So, as I say, book by Ninty Media. Paul Murphy is the book concept and lead writer. Ben Bolbeck is the book editor. There's various illustrators involved. Great work, I'm sure. Contributors as well. There's additional photography. And yeah, there's all the kind of gumph at the front that you get. As a preface, now hopefully there's a contents. Yes, there's a contents. It's always a good place to start. So just flicking through the contents. This is nice. This kind of line art design, which is the Game Boy Color kind of graphic design, line art. Oh, almost like a blueprint, isn't it? And then the Game Boy game pack as well, which is on this lovely blue background, which reminds me of maths, which I have fondness for, unlike some people. Do like a bit of maths. Anyway, contents, let's just dip into various things. You've got forward, introduction there, page boys would be interesting, fan translations, the timeline, which I'd like to look at. I might flick to that first, actually. We've got Alpha and Omega, Game Boy Tennis, Mobile Go, Pokemon, more Pokemon, Metroidvania, Game Boy Color games, Virtual Insanity, Virtual Boy games, interestingly, and the backers and contributors and all that. So I'm going to flick around a bit, I think, just in this book. So page-wise, you're looking at over 300 pages, which is good. There's the game. Virtual Boy, oh, I love the Virtual Boy. If you follow games you love, you probably know that already. So let's go and have a look at this timeline. I think it's a good place to start, actually. I know I'm skipping ahead, but I like to be somewhat controversial and not sheep-like, funnily enough, and do my own thing. So that's why you want to watch this channel, because I could be flicking all over this book before you know it, rather than going 1 to 300 and whatever page it's in. So this is a timeline. Very nice, actually. It's almost not quite at the centre of the book, but it's written by Paul and talks about, very beginnings of Nintendo, how it was founded in 1889, became a Nintendo company, and then really kind of around let's think, it started making video games in the arcade, I believe, actually. There's a kind of bit here maybe you've got beforehand, because it was making like toys and games, but it certainly had Donkey Kong in 1981. That was a seminal moment, and the Colour Game, which was in 1977. They were dipping their toe in the 70s, in fact, in the arcade. And the Game & Watch, which is a huge hit, both ball and there's obviously a US release as well. Toss Up, try and remember, I do have that around here somewhere in this room. And then we've got the my favourite Game & Watch, which is the Donkey Kong, absolute seminal game, groundbreaking game, and it really brought in the D-pad specifically for the units, and the D-pad obviously now is a industry staple, as it says in the book, fantastically. You've also got Game Freak, which is slightly more unusual, and things that happen around the time, if you like, the colour. And then you've got the Virtual Boy. Into the Game Boy itself, first of all, which was just huge at the time, 1989. I think a lot of people got the Game Boy not in 89. I think they got it in the 90s, much more. I think 92 is really kicking in, big styly. The Game Boy Color was released in Japan on October 21st, 1998, alongside a color-only release of Wario Land 2. Because obviously you can play Game Boy games, but you want your kind of Game Boy Color games, don't you? Because they're really cool. And it goes through the whole timeline here, talks about other things that are happening as well, which is pretty cool. Neo Geo Pocket, the Wonder Swan. You've got the Pokemon Mini, which came out. Really nice. I love this illustration style as well they've got going on. Feels very original and unique. So I do like that. Right, let's flick around this book. I'm not going to go every page, because practically you could just get the whole book by watching this video, which I'm not going to do because you might want to check it out yourself. So spoiler alert, I'm now going to go in. So I'm just going to flick into it. Talks about the success. I think really this bit, it prints money, and definitely the Game Boy was such a huge success, so why not follow it up with the Game Boy Color? Targeting a key audience again, which the Game Boy just did. The handheld idea of playing games on the go, on the train, wherever you were, on the plane, it just blew up. I mean, I remember owning one of these. I bought it in 2000 in New York. It was quite expensive at the time. I think it was at least a couple of $100. There she is, absolutely gorgeous design, the box itself and the Game Boy. So let's just get it out, compare it against what Ninty Media have in the book. So let's just be very careful with it, because it is my original one, and it's in reasonable condition, isn't it? So but just put it against the book there, just a comparison. Nice reproduction. I do like this paper. It's on a uncoated stock, so it's got a slightly fibrous finish to it rather than a gloss. Perhaps images don't punch out so much because it's not a gloss, but I don't mind that because it's not really like a leaflet feel. It's got a nice coffee table style feel to it, which I really like. And there's more close-ups, which I really like, the detail, getting into the sides, the buttons, all the very detail, and then the insides, that's even better. Sorry, that was my foot there. I'll take that back out. That's so random. I'm just trying to get a seated position that's comfortable. Just forget what went on there. You didn't see, it's just a toe poking out. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, moving on swiftly. Then we go into what's happening at the time. As I mentioned in the timeline earlier, we've got the Wonder Swan, which was not a commercial success, but is a cool looking little item. The Neo Geo Pocket definitely had success in Japan. It seeped into the UK. I actually bought mine from Electronics Boutique at the time. In fact, I've been buying bits and bobs over the years for it. It's quite difficult to find the games, but it didn't really rival the Game Boy Color, but it's definitely one worth mentioning. I think it's good to mention other machines because I like that. There are books obviously purely dedicated to one thing, which is definitely good itself. It's focused, it's laser focused on one thing. This seems to kind of do some timeline stuff, which I mentioned earlier. The Rumble Pack, very famous in the Game Boy Color. Again, quite difficult to get hold of these days, so it's worth mentioning that. I'm going to flick in now. So I'm not going. This is like a whistle-stop tour of this book rather than the whole thing. I'll keep my toe out of it because we don't need that in this. It's not that kind of video, is it really? We'll leave that to somebody else. And yeah, moving on swiftly. What else have we got here? Let's just get into a subject. Pokemon, obviously, huge subject for pretty much any Game Boy, really, quite frankly, and obviously into the Switch. But yeah, the Game Boy Color had massive amounts of popularity for Pokemon, and there's a big piece in here. There's gold version, silver version, you name it version. It pretty much covers quite a lot of those as well. And we've got various contributors as well. Nick Thorpe here, who actually writes for Retro Gamer Mag. He's got a piece in here about obviously Street Fighter, the Alpha and the Amiga, talking about the Game Boy Color. I've actually got Street Fighter 2. I think it's the not World Warriors, another Championship edition. Yeah, pretty fantastic. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to dip into it too hard because that would be spoiling it. But I'm just going to show you some pages, talk through it. I love pinball games. I actually own this game. Wow, yes. This is a really good game, actually. Pokemon Pinball to play. It's really good fun. It's colourful. And there's only 2 tables, but it's sufficient to have lots of fun. Shanty's a great game. Can't miss out on that one. Again, these games are getting more rare, more difficult these days. So pick them up while you can at this price. And yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this whistle-stop tour. And so you can get it from Ninty Media. Check it out in the comments below. What's your favourite colour is. And I'll see you on the next video.